it's Raimi, and today I wanted to do a little October wrap up because this month I read a very interesting array of books, and most of them were really, really good, but it was definitely a strange mixture of books. So I just wanted to share them with you and talk about the books that I read in October. So let's get into it. The first book that I read in October was Thunderhead by Neal Shusterman. I checked it out from the library. It is the second book in the Scythe trilogy, and it was really good. I don't know if I quite liked it as much as the first book, but holy moly did it end on a cliffhanger. So now I have to read book 3, which I do have it checked out and I have it with me ready to go. It was a little bit longer than I think I would have liked. I still wound up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. I am really enjoying the progression of the story, and especially like how things kind of, obviously it left off on a cliffhanger, but how things kind of came to in the second book I thought was really interesting. And also I just still love the two main characters, Citra and Rowan. I just loved getting more of their story. Even if it was a little bit dragged out, I still really, really enjoyed it. And the kind of premonitions that happened in the first book that were executed in the second book were really interesting to see how the author kind of executed those things. The end was definitely the best part. Like that's kind of, I think, what gave it that extra bump up from like a 3 to a 4 star. I'm really excited to go into the third book of the Scythe series. The next book that I read in the month of October is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This was the first Ashley Poston book that I ever read. She recently came out with another one, The 7 Year Slip, I think, and I really want to read that too, especially after reading this one. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was really good, and I kind of liked the spin on the traditional romance, where this was almost a little bit more literary fiction than romance, which I really enjoyed. I don't know, I just thought it was a really interesting twist, and I thought it was kind of a fun, like, you can read this any time of the year, but in specifically October, it's a little bit more of that like paranormal twist on a romance without being like a fully like October themed romance, if that makes sense. I really enjoyed it for that because it kind of fit the mood, it fit October. Overall, I enjoyed this book. Glad I read it, and I'm excited to read more of Ashley Poston's writing. Next, I read the second book in the Dreamland Billionaire series, Terms and Conditions. This one, I gave a 3.5 out of 5. I think a 3 is a little bit more accurate. I still enjoyed it. I really, really like Lauren Asher's writing. I just didn't connect with the couple as much. It was kind of almost unsettled, I guess, and so I just didn't really enjoy that relationship as much as the first book. I'm excited to read the third book because it's the little brother story and I'm really curious about it. Overall, I've enjoyed the series. Next, I read the book Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt. This one I gave a 3 out of 5. I couldn't tell you much about the book other than it was a romance between two comedians, which I thought was like sweet because they had, you know, tons of inside jokes and like I thought that was really cute. And there was a lot of deaf representation within this book. The characters using sign language. One of the characters' daughters is deaf, and so I thought that was really cool. I had never read a book with that kind of representation before, so I really liked that. But other than that, like, it was just a romance. Like, I didn't think it had anything really that special going for it. I enjoyed it, but was it like memorable? No. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that one. Next, probably the most unexpected read out of this month is Crave by Tracy Wolff. I can't remember who I was talking to, and they were telling me that actually that the Crave series is really good, that like you can't go into it expecting something revolutionary, but that for being just like a young adult fantasy story about supernaturals and being in a boarding school and just like that whole vibe, like it was really good. And I was hooked. Okay, first of all, the first half of the book was very Twilight coded. Like, it was very, like, the similarities were laughable. I was laughing out loud at some of the similarities, but by the second half and by the end of the book, it had truly created kind of its own diverging plot from the traditional Twilight plot. And I was hooked. Like, I was fully hooked and really enjoyed this story. The main character, she has gone through a lot and she's trying to process a lot, and there's so many questions and so many unanswered things. And by the end, you're like finally kind of understanding what the heck is going on, and that there's a way bigger issue at play here than what kind of was initially communicated. I was immediately wanting to go to the second book. So I'm currently listening to the second book. It's going really well. I was so turned off by the Crave series, thinking that it was just a Twilight copy, and like, no, I don't, like, I love Twilight. I don't want anything to do with a copy. It's not gonna be as good. It's gonna be stupid, whatever. I was very much wrong. It is funny. It is good. I mean, it is not a masterpiece by any means, in my personal opinion, but I think for a straightforward, funny, more lighthearted, kind of supernatural fantasy story, like, I enjoyed it. It was really enjoyable to me. I wound up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. I just enjoyed the reading experience. That's all I can say about that. Next, a little bit of the bane of my existence this month, only because it took so much longer than I initially intended. I'm counting it as a book because it was like almost an 800-page book, is the fanfic Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Being in Love by Is This Self-Care? This book was so good. I gave it a 5 out of 5. I thoroughly enjoyed every single page of this book, even if it took 10 million years to read. I made a whole video about it, so if you want more info, you want more details on this fanfic, please go watch it. I'll have it linked somewhere for you guys to watch it. Getting to experience these characters 15 years after the War of Hogwarts, which is where this story takes place, was so cool to get to see these characters that you watched grow from childhood into their adolescence, into young adults, and then 15 years in the future when they're like fully developed adults and living their normal lives, and you know, they're developing their careers. I really enjoyed getting to experience that part of the characters, I guess, in this fanfic. And the author, Is This Self-Care, they must have known their Harry Potter stuff because there were so many callbacks, so many references. It was written so well. I was so thoroughly impressed by this fanfic, and I would absolutely highly recommend, if you love fanfics but you've never read this, or if you wanted to read a fanfic but you don't know where to start, highly recommend. Next, I read My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. This one was so cute. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I read it in 2 days. The main love interest was so sweet and endearing, and I absolutely loved him, Frederick, and their relationship together was just freaking adorable. And it definitely, the ending didn't necessarily go the way that I suspected it would, but I didn't mind it, and I thought that the story overall was just very cute. It was like the kind of the traditional like themed holiday book, but I felt like it was done really well, and it wasn't too cheesy. It wasn't too over the top. The cover is so adorable. Like, I'm actually obsessed with this cover. So I'm so glad that I get to have it on my shelf. Last but not least, I read Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. I apologize if I said that wrong. This is a nonfiction memoir, I believe, and I did not realize that at first. I had seen this book everywhere, but I hadn't really heard anything about the details, so I thought that it was a story kind of referencing real life experiences, but I didn't realize that it was the author's like true story, which I kind of realized about a quarter into the book just because of the way it was written and everything. I was like, this cannot be fiction. This has to be nonfiction. And I looked it up, and of course, yes, it is nonfiction. Wow, this book was so incredibly raw and so emotional, while also having this, I don't know, it's still like maintained an air of love and comfort, and I was truly blown away by the author's ability to write that way. The love that the author had for her mother was palpable in this book. Like, you could feel it, and I feel like that truly maintained her through the entirety of the book, even when she was dealing with one of the most difficult things that you can deal with in your entire life. The way that the author captured that experience was devastating and beautiful at the same time, and I am just so thankful that she wrote this story to share with us, to have a glimpse into her personal story and something that is so raw and true to her. I mean, it was just a glimpse into her life and her story, and I'm just so incredibly thankful to have the opportunity to read it. And yes, 5 out of 5 stars. I went into it not expecting it to be what it was because I went into it uneducated, but I got much more out of it than I ever expected to. So yeah, those were the books that I read in October. Kind of a strange collection of books, but really great books nonetheless. And I mean, most of them were 4 and 5 stars. There were only 2 that were not. So I'd say that's a pretty good win for the month of October. I hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Happy reading. Bye.